Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're heading to one of the most, well, notoriously dangerous places on the planet, the Khumbu Icefall on Mount Everest.
Ah, yes, an infamous spot.
Right. If you know anything about Everest, you know the icefall isn't just like a static glacier. It's alive.
It really is, constantly shifting, groaning. You can apparently feel the vibrations.
Yeah, our sources describe it as the most dangerous icefall in the world, where everything just seems broken and moving. For climbers heading up Sagarmatha, Everest, base camp is just the beginning, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's just the starting point. You've still got camps 1, 2, 3, and 4 ahead.
And that first major hurdle, the section between base camp and Camp 1, that's the Khumbu.
That's it. Described almost like a slow-motion landslide of ice and snow. Unsettling, constantly undulating. And what's really key, based on what we've looked at, is who goes in there first each season.
Right, not the famous climbers, not the big expedition leaders initially.
No, the very first people to step into that chaos are the icefall doctors.
These are the indigenous Sherpa, right?
Yeah.
People who literally grew up in the shadow of the mountain.
Exactly. They grew up at the foot of Sagarmatha, Chumolungma. They have this almost innate feel for the place, for the air, the snow. It makes them the only ones who can actually, well, forge a path through it. They literally make the climb possible.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, to really get a sense of these unsung heroes. We want to explore their incredible work, the skills involved, the huge risks they take every single day. And also, what drives them? Why take on arguably the most dangerous job on Earth? Let's unpack it.
It's a fascinating role, and it's steeped in generational knowledge. We read about people like Aung Sherpa, 18 years working in the icefall. That's incredible.
18 years, wow.
Yeah, he started trekking work really young, at 12, and then moved to the icefall around 2007. He learned from a guru, someone who'd been doing it for, get this, 43 years.
43 years, that's a lifetime.
It really is. And it's not just about time served. It's about learning the mountain's language, understanding the ice instinctively. Aung Sarkis said it took him 6 or 7 years just to learn the basics, the ropes, literally. Now, after 18 years, he can just tell how stable the ice is.
That kind of intuition must be absolutely vital. Because the sources say the track through the icefall cracks and breaks every single day.
Constantly. They're dealing with these huge ice towers, seracs. There's one place they call Dom Football Field.
Why that name?
Apparently foreign climbers named it because it used to be flat, like a football pitch. Now it's anything but and constantly threatening to collapse.
Okay, so given this constant change and danger, what's a typical day like? How do they manage it?
Well, they work in 2 teams, A and B. They rotate, so one team checks the route while the other rests. If they're just doing a check, no major repairs, they can maybe reach key spots like that football field area in, say, 1.5 to 2 hours. But if there's damage reported, that's different. They have to haul up heavy gear, ladders, ropes, sometimes weighing 20, even 25 kilograms.
25 kilos.
Yeah.
At that altitude.
Yeah. And that can easily push the travel time to 2.5 hours just to reach the spot that needs fixing.
Wow.
And they're fully kitted out, of course. Helmets, harnesses, crampons, ice axes, the works. Their job isn't just setting the route once, it's constant maintenance, often reactive. Climbers report damage and they have to go fix it. They're checking anchors, the points ropes are fixed, to making sure they're solid, checking if snow melt has shifted things, digging out buried ropes, replacing broken ones.
That physical demand alone is just extraordinary, hauling that weight in that environment. But beyond the physical side, what's the most unexpected challenge they face? Something we wouldn't even think about.
I think it's the sheer unpredictability at the start of the season. After the monsoon, the winter snows.
Yeah.
Last year's path is just gone, vanished.
Completely wiped clean.
Completely. The route to the peak is basically cut off, impassable. So the icefall doctors, they put the very first footsteps onto that unknown terrain. Sometimes working at night or dusk, they're putting up ladders across huge crevasses, hammering ice screws into snow that's as hard as rock.
They become the ladders themselves, in a way.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. They become the ladders for hundreds of climbers who follow, and they're just constantly hoping everyone stays safe. They talk a lot about honoring the gods, praying for good fortune. It really underscores the risk, the feeling that so much is out of their control.
It paints this picture of the daily gamble, really. They describe the icefall as the place where you experience death from the closest possible distance. What makes it so unstable?
That's the core question, isn't it? How do you manage that? The main problem is just that constant violent movement.
It never stops.
Never. A path they cleared hours ago could just collapse, even in the middle of the night. There's absolutely no guarantee. It's universally seen as the most dangerous part of climbing Everest, period.
Yeah.
And it can be deep, 200 or 300 meters deep in places, filled with hidden cracks, crevasses, these massive fissures in the ice.
Hidden ones, too.
Yeah, some V-shaped ones look narrow at the top but are huge below. Or sometimes the ice looks solid but it's hollow underneath. It could just shatter. They might be routing the path along the edge of an ice wall as big as a house. It's just inherently unstable.
One of them mentioned how wind, snow, water, it all constantly changes the geography. How on earth do they predict where it's safe or where the next hazard will pop up?
It comes back to that blend of ancestral knowledge and just hard-won experience. They call themselves experts of the snow. They say they can tell if snow layers are strong or weak, if the snow molecules are holding tight, just by looking, by feeling it.
Yeah.
So they're constantly scanning for potential ice falls, landslides, looking for routes away from huge, unstable blocks. And they have to set those anchors, the ropes, incredibly securely because hundreds of people will rely on them. One doctor even said, ice falls nature. If it doesn't recognize us, it might lead to a number of accidents.
That's quite a statement. It shows this deep respect, almost like they see the icefall as a living being they have to appease.
I think that's exactly right. And it's a respect born from, well, terrifying experiences. They mentioned an avalanche back in 2012 came down off Nuptse, swept tents away. They were buried, but somehow got out okay.
Lucky escape.
Incredibly lucky,
Yeah.
but others haven't been. There's that tragic story of a climber whose crampon, the spikes on the boots,
Okay.
got stuck in a ladder rung. He didn't have his safety locks clipped on properly, and he fell. A fatal fall.
Oh, no. Just like that.
Just like that. It highlights what the doctors always stress. Use your safety locks. Always. It's compulsory. They say if you think it's easy, if you get complacent, you just don't know when something could go wrong. Another doctor shared this chilling memory of nearly suffocating just from snow dust during a landslide. Didn't even get hit by ice, just the dust.
So the danger isn't always the obvious massive collapse. It can be subtle, too.
Exactly. They face it daily. Routine checks, emergency repairs. It's always there. And they're really honest about the fear.
Which brings us back to that question. Hearing about the terror, the constant risk. Why do it? What really makes someone take on this incredibly dangerous job? It can't just be for the adrenaline.
No, definitely not. It seems to be a really complex mix of, well, necessity and identity. Many are quite upfront. Unemployment is a big factor. Maybe they couldn't get work abroad, didn't get visas. This is a way to earn a living, a dangerous one, but a living.
So economic pressure is definitely part of it.
A significant part. But alongside that, there's this deep cultural element within the Sherpa community, guiding others, showing the way. It's seen as virtuous, a source of real satisfaction.
Like a calling, almost.
In a way, yeah. They find purpose, even a kind of, maybe excitement isn't the right word, but a challenge in tackling this environment. So it's this unique combination, economic reality meeting this centuries-old cultural role of enabling passage through the mountains. That's what compels them.
It sounds like an immense emotional weight, too, especially thinking about their families back home. The sources mentioned families living in fear, constantly wondering what's happening today, what about tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a heavy burden. They apparently try to shield their families from the worst of it.
How so?
They tell them the work isn't too hard, try to give them courage, reassurance, even though for the doctors themselves, every single day brings fear. One man said his wife and kids don't know the real risks. He just tells them the dangers aren't too bad.
That's quite a sacrifice, balancing the need to provide that constant anxiety for their loved ones.
A profound sacrifice, yes.
And reflecting on that hidden courage, it creates a pretty stark contrast, doesn't it? How the wider climbing world actually views this sacrifice. The sources are pretty clear that summiters get the fame, the celebration, but the icefall doctor's work, the route setting, it's often just overlooked, undocumented.
It really raises that fundamental question of recognition, doesn't it? They state it very plainly. Without the icefall doctors paving the way, people conquering Mount Everest is impossible. Full stop.
They're not exaggerating, are they?
Not according to them. They say if they gave up, nobody else could open the route. They point out that even highly skilled international guides who have the technical ability, they just don't want to take the risk.
Really? So when there's damage?
When a section is damaged, apparently these other guides might look at it from a safe distance, but it's the icefall doctors who have to show up, go in, and actually make the dangerous repairs.
Their work is literally the foundation for everyone else's climb.
Exactly. The foundational layer. Yet it remains largely invisible, unsung.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the really crucial takeaway seems to be this. Climbing Everest, it just flat out wouldn't happen without the Icefall doctors.
That sums it up perfectly.
Their work makes the path. They're the ones taking those unbelievable risks day in, day out, ensuring hundreds of others can pass safely.
Uh,
But their struggle, that silent ordeal inside the icefall, it's rarely seen, rarely documented. The summiters get the headlines, while their sacrifice is barely acknowledged.
and, their insights go beyond just the climb itself. They're seeing bigger changes happening.
Right, the environmental aspect.
Yeah. They've noticed the snow and ice visibly disappearing, black rocks showing through where solid ice used to be. They blame the heat, rising temperatures. They even predict that in maybe 30, 40 years, climbers won't be on snow and ice there as much. They might have to climb on rock instead because the ice will be gone.
Which leads to a really sobering final thought, doesn't it? What does this long-term melting mean? Not just for future climbers, but for the communities living there. These are high-altitude regions. No trees, no plants to speak of. They depend entirely on snowmelt for drinking water.
That's their life source.
Exactly. So if the snow keeps shrinking like this,
Hmm.
what happens to the water supply for their children, their grandchildren?
It's a deeply concerning question.
It really makes you consider the true cost, human and environmental, behind these extreme adventures, and the critical, dangerous, hidden work that makes it all possible. What stands out most to you, maybe the most chilling part of their story?